All right, San Marcos, this is another one of our front rouge Take two. Okay, San Marcos, this is another one of our front porch political talks. The fluoride people came by yesterday. One of my fellow activists in town, who I have a lot of respect for, made some very good points about this ballot initiative. Actually, there's two of them. There's Proposition 1 and there's Proposition 2. And we talked about that in the video blog yesterday, but I want to extrapolate on Proposition 2. Proposition 2, that's the one that the city planners made to make it more difficult for you, the engaged citizen, to craft a petition to get that thing approved and then for your ballot initiative to end up on the ballot. They are purposely changing the charter, the city charter, which is like the United States Constitution for our community, so that it's more difficult for you to engage in your free speech rights and your right to assembly via using petitions. And that's just shameful. I'm sorry. That is what you call I want to say blowback, but I guess it's more blowback for the activist, unfortunately. It's bad karma for the city. So Proposition 1 is to protect your children's teeth and body from fluoride. It is a lie, outright lie from the scientists, especially when the city is using industrial fluoride to poison your children. That is not good for their teeth. Some of you can have babies that have fluorosis in utero from drinking this crap. And if you know, our water is just fine, and the students up at Texas State, of which all the development in town is being crafted, they all don't have to have the fluoride in their water, but we do. In fact, our students on campus are so civically engaged that they actually crafted a resolution through their student government some years ago about the fluoride, how they supported anti-fluoridation of San Marcos water. It's unfortunate that there hasn't been much. I haven't watched the debates personally. I've been busy with my own life. And so I'm wondering how much discussion there has been on fluoride. I'll be there tonight, and I'll be sure to bring it up. So please, San Marcos, just as important as it is to vote for the right candidate in this election cycle, it's also to be informed of how the local constitution, i.e. our city charter, is being changed by city planners. I mean, and if we look at the language in this proposition, I could never pass the LSAT. My brain doesn't work that way. But someone who did, crafted this, who I have a lot of respect for, if it was you, Michael, shout out, holla, my fellow Sicilian. I've only had 2 sips of coffee, people, by the way. I'm just fired up about this. So as I drink my Red Bud El Salvador, it's not decaf, my 3rd sip, that concludes the second of our front porch discourses. Please vote for Proposition 1 and vote against Proposition 2. This is just as important as our candidates, because it's your health and your right not to be poisoned by a local municipality when there's other cities all across the nation that have followed a precedent to ban industrial fluoride from their water. That's all I have to say. Back to my Red Bud coffee. Okay, San Marcos, so we're going to put this issue. I got a little coffee in me, so I'm fired up. So now I want to talk about those financial reports that those cats filed. I encourage every citizen who has an election card to show up with and their voter ID, and they know who they're going to vote for. If you're not, I encourage you to go take a look at all the financial reports. Take a look at Mr. Arredondo's financial reports and who's giving him money. I mean, that's troublesome. If you know the development patterns in this town, you should be running like you're on the Halloween set. And here he comes. I don't know who it is because I don't watch those kind of movies, but whoever the dude is that's coming out, those are the people that are funding this guy. Now, Shane Scott is just as bad. If you take a look at some of those developers, these are people you do not want funding political mouthpieces up at the mic at the dais. So I would strongly urge you to pull those and see if they're being filed in a timely manner. And I know who the other 2 candidates, I know Miss Melissa Derrick and Mr. Scott Gregson, have some wonderful supporters for their campaign. And so for me, I'm always about following the money, because where you follow the money, you find the stank. And that's where you find the mouthpieces, where nothing but untruth comes out. And that's what's happened, Mr. Scott, because you didn't fall on your promises. Actually, you fell on your promises that you were going to protect the environment here in our community, and you voted after one development after another. That's why I'm not supporting you. And I was your campaign manager, sir. And in fact, y'all can go back to the footage. He actually covered his face in embarrassment when I called that to attention to him at the mic, and everybody saw it, Shane. I was the one putting up all your signs. And then I showed up to City Hall the next week, and what does Shane Scott say public? You know what he said? He said, "What are you doing here?" That's what he said when I showed up to City Hall, people. And what I wanted to say was, where were you, Shane Scott, all these years? I was at the mic since 1988. This is your first time at City Hall, son. So anyway, that's my rant about Shane Scott. I'm also voting for Scott Gregson. I'm also voting for Prop 1 and against Prop 2. Please, y'all, early voting is starting next week. We have to punch those ballots and get those early votes in. Do not wait till Election Day. Please don't do that. Unless you're like a hardcore Election Day voter like I am, you know you're going to do it, do it. But if you're not sure, do it during early voting, because we're going to be hounding you. I'm going to be looking at all the early voting lists. I'm going to call all my friends if I don't see your name. I'm going to say, I don't see your name, so-and-so. Can you go vote tomorrow? And if you don't, I'll call you again. It's kind of like my students, chasing them down for their assignments. But this time I'll be a little bit more bold and brash when I start texting you guys. So you better go vote. The last thing I wanted to say about Shane Scott is how completely unengaged he's been during all of the road construction. There's been so many problems in our part of the neck of the woods with all kinds of things like being woken up at night to the smell of toxic fumes and trucks because of some sort of mishap with their scheduling. We've had problems with people going up and down our streets with 18-wheelers. The DPS had to come out one time because someone got stuck. They knocked down a couple of historic trees, roots. Of course, a lot of us got sick all summer from the dust that was being flung up everywhere. Some of my friends actually got rashes. So we've had air particulate issues. We've had traffic issues, neighborhood integrity issues. There's been eminent domain flare-ups that we've fought, and you are nowhere to be found, Shane Scott. And you're Mr. I'm for the developers' rights, but where's the private citizen who is living here much longer than you were, who shows up to the mic? You weren't there, Shane Scott. So these are my personal opinions. This is not a paid political announcement. I don't filter anything through anybody, so these are my opinions. I just want to make that very, very clear. And I've said those at the mic before to Mr. Scott on public record. And he's never apologized to anybody over at Capes Camp. In fact, he's tried to use his rhetoric to spin it. And we all know you're working off of inaccurate data. And even if you aren't sure, Shane, you at least owe them some sort of apology because of the perception that that development caused a berm and flooded out 60 years, 70 years worth of memories of some of these people. They lost everything. I hope they go vote against you, Shane, in numbers. And they will.